Have you ever felt like your anxiety got in the way of your education? Have you ever felt like if you didn't have anxiety, you'd be able to perform better academically? Is anxiety potent enough to have a negative effect on your academic performance? The answer is yes. Anxiety is potent enough to have a negative effect on your academic performance. In fact, according to mvorganizing.org, in April of 2021, 30% of college students reported that their anxiety impacted their academics negatively. Today, I'm going to speak to you about how anxiety will negatively affect your academic performance. I'll speak to you about how anxiety impacts the working memory, how anxiety causes underachievement, and how anxiety leads to low self-esteem, all which lead back to a negatively impacted academic performance. Working memory is responsible for reasoning and decision making, two things that are very important in academics. When information is given to us, it goes through the thalamus into the working memory, where it is decided what information is turned into long-term memories. This is also referred to as the temporary storage. When anxious, our bodies produce the hormone cortisol. Cortisol sends our bodies into fight or flight mode, which affects the thinking portion of our brain. Therefore, when anxious, we are unable to retain new information and unable to recall old information because the information that's given to us is not being processed properly. According to frontierson.org, in January of 2019, findings indicated that those with high levels of anxiety also demonstrated worse working memory performance. If students are unable to retain or recall information, they are unable to work to the best of their abilities. They begin to underachieve, which brings me to my next point. When anxious, you put less time and effort into your education. You use less efficient learning strategies that in the end result in you being unprepared for tests or exams. Many argue that anxiety actually helps your academic performance by creating a source of motivation, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. Anxiety increases attentiveness to task-irrelevant aspects, meaning that there is a lack in engagement to the material that's at hand. According to ncbi.nlm.nih.gov, in August of 2015, findings indicated that those with high levels of anxiety are more likely to procrastinate, to postpone writing term papers, and are unable to keep up with weekly readings. This can begin to make students feel like failures. Which brings me to my next point: how anxiety leads to poor self-esteem and how it will affect you academically. The anxious mind is constantly afraid of failing, afraid of being ridiculed, and afraid of being vulnerable. I'm not going to talk to him because it makes me anxious. It's a sentence that we all know too well. Constant anxiousness results in low self-esteem because it provokes fears and insecurities. And this low self-esteem will affect you academically. Because I'm not going to talk to that person, it makes me anxious, will turn into I'm not going to perform that speech because it makes me anxious. According to files.eric.edu.gov, in 2015, the study between the correlation of self-esteem and academic performance demonstrated that those students with a high self-esteem performed better academically. Self-esteem is a key factor in a successful academic career. I've just discussed with you how anxiety can negatively affect your academic performance. I've discussed how anxiety impacts the working memory, how anxiety can cause underachievement, and how anxiety leads to poor self-esteem. Anxiety is potent enough to have a negative effect on your academic performance, which is why 30% of college students like me and you have reported that their anxiety has negatively affected their academics. So now that you're aware of how anxiety can negatively affect your academics, I hope that you take the extra step to look for an anxiety coping mechanism that will not only improve your anxiety in the process, but also your academic performance. Thank you.